welcome back, everyone. It's good to see you for another evening of Dasabhumika. This evening, we are going to have a presentation and lecture from Dr. Lancaster, the first half of class. And then the second half of class, we will turn to the reports that we sent out a message. Have you analyzed Boomi 1 using AI tools? So we will turn to that and other matters in the second half of class. Any questions before we begin? Okay, great. Professor Lancaster, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm going to try to answer some of the queries that you've sent me from the last lecture. And you might not recognize your question because I tried to merge questions that seem to be in the same area. But if the answer I give is not what you need, please raise your hand and ask again. I have PowerPoint, so let me go to it. So these are the issues which have been raised by you. I hope you recognize your question. That will be part of. First question, and by the way, I tried to find a symbol for an answer. We have a symbol for a question, which is the question mark. The closest thing I can come to for a symbol for an answer is what you see here, an exclamation point in a box. If any of you have another or better symbol for an answer, I'd love to have it. The words you see in this is what I try to do all the time. These are quotations from the sutra itself. And some of the comments that I make are my own, but what you read in the slides is the sutra. Many of you are asking about upaya. And I realized that my earliest use of upaya was just for skill in teaching. And it took me a while to realize that skillful means or skillful action can be used for many things, not just teaching. So the sutra says, for example, where it has the word upaya or skillful means, the bodhisattvas are able to act for the benefit of all, and they're able to reach the perfection of all bodhisattvas. And then it combines wisdom and skillful means. Wisdom and skillful means going together. Skillful means, I'm not sure as a translation, it's one that we're accustomed to, but it's actually skillful action. They were able to reveal for beings the gateway leading from samsara to nirvana. So in this sutra that we're in, upaya means the acts which allow a bodhisattva to move from this world of samsara to nirvana. As I said, that was something which this sutra introduced me to, that skillful means is not just teaching. And so that's the first one. Anybody have a question about this? Okay. So a lot of people, in one way or another, ask the question of what is the function of the three: compassion, wisdom, and upaya, skillful means. And the sutra answers this. Bodhisattvas take compassion as the foremost. They take wisdom as its predominant condition, and they guard it by skillful means. I think this is a really important passage out of the sutra. It's telling us that the bodhisattva is working with compassion, wisdom, and skillful acts at the same time, and that they, each of the three of them, have particular meanings. And this is a really beautiful statement of it. Again, I'll pause. Do any of you have any further questions? So this is, the question is the relationship of compassion, wisdom, and upaya. So they take compassion, take a compassionate mind, I put. This is another section of the sutra. They take compassionate mind and wisdom as the foremost. We see that in the previous verse. And they cultivate them with skillful actions. So that the cultivation is what is intended when the text says that you have compassion, wisdom, and you combine it with upaya, which means you combine it with the cultivation and the practices. So another question that came is, what is the wisdom of the bodhisattva? What is it that a bodhisattva knows? This answer was, the text says, the bodhisattva's wisdom is one that leads to liberation, and it cannot be separated from knowing the reality of existing things. That's why many times teachers are asked a question they won't answer. And the reason is that the answer would not lead to liberation. How do you must always, from their perspective, the bodhisattva must try to answer in such a way that it leads to liberation. So if you ask the question of how many cars are there on the LA freeways, they would not answer because this is not something that might lead you to liberation. But the liberation that they're talking about, the wisdom, and this is, I think, really important, cannot be separated from knowing the reality of existing things. If you don't know the way things really are, then it's very hard to get to liberation, maybe impossible. So the wisdom which leads to liberation, in the Buddhist sense, is not so separated from this world of ours that you would not make any use of it. It says this wisdom, which leads you to liberation, cannot ever be separated from the world around us. We must always deal with the world around us. And so that's one of the major teachings of this text. So we follow that up with the question, what is the reality a bodhisattva comprehends? What is that reality? The answer the sutra itself gives is he realizes that reality is non-existent of any inherently existent action at all. In other words, the reality which we talk about and which we identify as reality is in fact empty. And that's part of what the Bodhisattva realizes, that there is no action at all. So how can that be? You know, our computers teach us that the action which we use in our computer is like an event. An event has a beginning, and it has a continuation, and it has an end. And until you end it in a computer, the program keeps on running, sometimes to your detriment. But at what point do you say, what was the beginning of it? This, I was reminded of going to a car factory and asking the person on the line who was making the final touch to the cars that were coming off the line. I asked him, when do you think all these pieces that you're putting together here in this room, when does it become a car? At what point is it a car in your estimation? And he said, it's a car when I put the key in the and turn the key and the car starts and runs. Unless that works, I don't think it's a car yet. It's just a conglomeration of pieces. And when you take it apart, if you take the ignition first, then it ceases, in my view, to be an automobile. So it's action like that, in a sense. When does it begin? Every time I talk about some action that I have, I realize there's a whole history that's already been lived. So if I ask myself the question, where did this pen come from that's on my desk? And the answer is, well, I have to go back to the factory. And beyond the factory, I have to go back to the place where they mine the metal. I have to keep going back and back and back. In fact, I can never find exactly what was the beginning of this pen that's on my desk. It's endless. And that's the basic teaching of Buddhism. That's why I put up the symbol for endlessness. If things are endless, then you can never say that there's a beginning, nor can you say that there's an end, because the beginning goes back and back and back until we lose track of it. And the text talks about future time. How far in the future will this event extend? Endlessly. The ripples we set in motion. Who's to say when they stop? Who's to say when the real impetus of an act is finished? So the bodhisattva reality, the reality is that there is no place at which we can say the act starts, and that this reality has a firm base in it in terms of start, continue, and stop, like an event. You just can't do that with reality from the point of view of this text. So this leads us to the next question. What brings about a bodhisattva's knowledge of this reality, which can never be identified as to when it starts and when it stops? And the text tells us the bodhisattva's knowledge about the way things are can only arise from wisdom. That is, it's the knowledge which we have, which is based on temporality, where I study how things originated and when and where. That can never really tell us, from the perspective of this sutra, where reality, that thing, started. So if I'm have wisdom, wisdom means dealing with this endlessness that we are all existing in. That's the wisdom which has to be dealt with, not just knowledge, but the wisdom. So following on, what prepares the bodhisattva for his practice? How can you practice such a thing? And so it says that a bodhisattva has an accumulation of many causes and conditions. These causes and conditions that lead to great kindness and great compassion. And it's these conditions which allow the bodhisattva to be one who is tireless. And I always associate this in a way with Master Xing Yun. People would always wonder, where in the world does he get the energy to do everything that he does? How can he go day after day, giving lecture after lecture, talk after talk, meeting hundreds of people? Where does he get the energy to do it? And the text tells us that where there is great kindness and great compassion, which has no limitations, then you don't get tired. You just don't get tired. There's enough space that you create that you can keep on going because you've got space. You have created a space. If I limit my space and say, well, I get up at 8 o'clock and I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and you say that's my work day. Well, I may say by 9 o'clock, I'm tired. And by 10 o'clock, I've got to go to bed. But from the perspective we're talking about here, to the degree that one has compassion, which has no limitation, then you never burn out. Master Xing Yun never burnt out. And that's an indication that this is the Bodhisattva's experienced. He becomes tireless. He just doesn't burn out. The texts often tell us that a bodhisattva adorns himself. Adornment means to put on some costume, put on clothing, put on jewels, we adorn ourselves. So how does a bodhisattva adorn himself in terms of these practices? And it says his wisdom tied to skillful action is what serves as his adornment. That's what we look at the Bodhisattva and see. We see their skillful means based on wisdom, and it's tireless. So somebody asked me, what is the best use of my time? How can I best use my time? And the text says something I had never thought about before, but here it is. The Bodhisattva, when dealing with worldly things, becomes aware of what constitutes correct timeliness. I have never associated timeliness with the actions of a bodhisattva. Correct timeliness. That is, it's really important to know that what you do has to be done at a time when it is worthwhile, when it works, when it's appropriate, when it's time. Think about teaching a child. If you take a 2-year-old and you spend your time trying to teach them calculus, that's not timely. You're not using your time timely. The timeliness is when you recognize the moment at which the child becomes ready to move into a new arena, becomes ready to learn whatever it is that I want to teach. And so timeliness and the correct measures of action are crucial as we live our lives. If we don't do it in a timely fashion, then I think you know that it doesn't work. So if I try to identify exactly when I should do something, the text is telling me, do you know when it's timely? And I have to ask myself that question because I'm teaching you right now. What's a timely way to teach you? Not that I teach you, you learn, but what is the timeliness of it? And that's why I think it's so important for me to hear your questions. I need to hear your own appraisal to know what you are dealing with and how you deal with it. So if you don't ever say anything and you don't ask me a question, I probably don't know what's timely for you. So please ask questions. I need it to be timely, and those actions to help me deal with what's timely. Another question that came was, what is this joy of a bodhisattva? Joy is when you leap for joy, when you enjoy in my case, I love an ice cream cone. So I keep thinking, my joyful moment is when I say, now I can have dessert. I've done my work and I've eaten my vegetables. Now I can have my just reward and I become joyful. But the bodhisattva, as you might think, becoming joyful for a bodhisattva is not dealing with these things. The bodhisattva becomes joyful because of his search for the knowledge of the Buddhas. It's that quest, that search that gives such joy. I've been recently, just for fun, doing ancestry and trying to track down my relatives. And um, it's like a treasure hunt. And sometimes when I discover finally when my great great grandmother was born, and I have not been able to find it, then I have this joyful feeling. Oh, great, I've found out something in a very small and insignificant way. That's joyfulness that comes when we search, when we explore, and when we find. So that's why the key word here is quest. The joy comes from the quest, the search, trying to find it. So the quest for the knowledge of the Buddha, when some thing comes and we have an insight, that gives the joy of a bodhisattva. Does anybody have a question about this, please? And I think I took your question here that you asked about this. Do you have any comment or further statements you'd like to share? Shanshan, you have your hand up. Good.
Yeah, so it's kind of another question because in the Mahayana teachings, like Guan Yin Bodhisattva, the Avalokitesvara, so actually he or she was a Buddha, but he wants to help the present Buddha, like Shakyamuni Buddha, and he or she just choose to be Bodhisattva again. So in that situation, because the first point is to bear in mind his quest for Buddha's knowledge. I think was already a Buddha, so I'm not sure whether maybe bearing in his mind is helping the Buddha to liberate all sentient beings. So just suddenly a point come to my mind.
Yes.
Maybe he's still searching for new knowledge. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, when you find some new knowledge and when you come across it, uh, it's really wonderful. So, Khan, do you have joy?
I try to.
Good.
Yeah, so I think I really appreciate Professor you sharing your perspective here. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, um, I try to imagine what kind of joy is this from Buddha or from Bodhisattvas? Because apparently this probably we're not talk, I mean, this is the different type of joys as uh they're talking about versus ours. So that actually that was the main reason why I think I asked this question from the beginning. But to me, knowledge is more like wisdom in a way, right? Because you know how the world works, you know where the suffering is coming from, and once you have that wisdom, and these suffering doesn't become like a suffering anymore, then you'll become more joyful, right? That's how I kind of internalize this whole thing here. Yeah, that's just some of my very quick thoughts.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate you sharing. And don't you all feel now? I kind of purposely did what I did just now. I went for a while and didn't really ask for questions. Not really. And then I kind of forced the issue by putting the finger on Khan and asking him to. And Shan fortunately entered into the fray. I do that to show that it's the quest that we have is best answered by sharing from many people. It really makes a big difference. Just listening to me and to one voice, it has its advantages, of course, but when you hear somebody else share their comments, it makes a huge difference. uh, my son teaches in high school, and he's found that when there are younger students, like junior high, who are having lots of problems, if he can take one of his high school students to go over and be the one to try to talk to that younger student, they are so much more joyful. They love it when the older boy comes into their room and talks to them. So, this quest for knowledge is something which is really important. Yes, Fong, you have your hand up. Good. Please share with us.
Okay, Professor, as I listen to you and you explain about the cause of the joy, so in here, it seemed like the first Pumi, right? First Pumi, first stages of the Bodhisattva stage, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have searched on that in the AIs, and the AI tell me, because I asked what the difference between the joys in daily life and the joy of uh the first Pumi, and then the AI told me very detailed, just like the joy here is not the normal joy. It's like the joy that, yeah, I would read that one. So it seemed like a difference from what, yeah, I have known. Just like, okay, my question is that okay, let me find which one. Is the first stage joyful? Does it mean all joy in daily life regard as the first stage? And then the answer is that it's a joy in the first Bhumi, Pramodita, is distinct from ordinary joys of daily life. Those there may be subtle connections. Here how they differ and intersect. Then they explain the natures of the first Bhumi joy, just like the source arrive from direct realization of emptiness, sunyata, and the irreversible commitment to liberate all beings, and it is a transcendent, unshakable joy rooted in wisdom, not dependent on external conditions like quality, unconditional, and non-dual, and purpose, just like uh, sure the Bodhisattva resolves to progress and through all 10 pumis. And they explain the ordinary joy in daily life, just like the source triggered by sensory pleasure, relationship, achievements, or temporary condition. Quality, conditions, impermanence, tied to ego preferences. It fades when circumstances change. Limitation, while positive, it does not inherently lead to liberation. It remains within the realms of samsara. Yeah, I think all of this, uh, like, I don't know if it's correct or not, but if I follow that one, it seems like very, very deep. It's not just a normal joy that I feel or I experience in my daily life. Yeah. So that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let me suggest to you, though, to all of you, and see what you think. If I take joy in something, can that joy that I take in something which may be quite ordinary? I think you heard me talk about my yellow rose. I used to walk by a yellow rose, and I loved that rose so much. I just thought it was the most beautiful thing. I'm very sorry to say that that rose burned in the LA fire. It is no more. And so I used to talk to the rose, and I would tell it, I understand that my perception of you is limited, and that my perception and the way in which I see you is not necessarily the way you are. But however, my perception is beautiful and gives me joy. I think if we don't find our joy in everyday life, we're never going to find it. We have to somehow understand that when we're questing for the Buddha's knowledge, that this knowledge is tied to everyday life for us in some way or other, and that we're called upon to try to make our everyday life wise, meaningful, compassionate. Thank you all. I enjoyed that discussion very much. Thank you, Honorable Pang, for your insightful comments. Well, goes to my next slide, which I made without this conversation, of course. What is joyful for a bodhisattva? The sutra says that they have joyful thoughts when calling to mind the gateways to wisdom and upaya. I think that this is something which all of us have to some degree. When we think there is a way for me to have insight, or there's a way for me to have an answer, or there's a way for me to handle my troubles, or there's a way for me to deal with someone else giving me a hard time, or there's a way for me to deal with all of these things. If I feel there's a way to deal with it, then I have joyful thoughts. Because my joyful thoughts are, there is some way to deal with this. And it's just this idea of beginning to believe that we can deal with things that are what is meant by this sutra saying wisdom, that is insight, understanding, which is done with a upaya, which is action that is fully comprehended and effective. So I feel some joy when I read this. There are gateways. They do exist. I may not have them yet, but they do exist. And it helps me just to know that they do exist. It's like if you're ill, some years ago, I had an undiagnosed illness, and it caused me to have pneumonia time after time after time. And I was in despair. And finally, this wonderful doctor, she wouldn't give me anything until she diagnosed my issue. And it took her a while to diagnose. But when she called me up and she told me the disease that I had. And then she said, but there's good news. We have a treatment and it works well. So you're going to get well. You're going to get better. And I think that's when I've suddenly had, there's a gateways to knowledge, to understanding, to insight about my illness. And there's an effective method of dealing with that knowledge. I jumped for joy when she told me that. I felt an immense relief. So I kind of know what it says. When you call to mind the gateways to insight and to a skillful way of dealing with your issue, that gives joy. Another question which was asked by several, what is the nature of what a bodhisattva teaches? What is the nature of the speech of a bodhisattva? And the sutra said, he's always aware of the importance of speech. And he's aware of the importance of speech in the sense of that the speech is timely, goes back to just what we were talking about, that it's truthful, it's not a deceptive speech, it's beneficial, it helps, that it accords with the teaching of the Buddha, and that it involves careful reflection. I think that when I think about what I say, what is, and all of you think about, what about your own speech? When you speak, is it timely? Is it the right time to be saying what you're saying? And is it truthful? You have to sometimes be very hard upon yourself to think about being truthful at all times, to yourself mainly. I'm not so worried about being truthful to others. I'm more worried about being truthful to myself. Am I truthful to myself? Is my speech beneficial? Is what I'm saying and what I hear myself saying, is it beneficial? Is it really helpful? And then I think this is something which always comes into play. Like when people start studying mindfulness and mindfulness becomes a national and worldwide movement does what I'm saying, is it in accord with the Dharma, with the teaching of the Buddhist? I think if you just take mindfulness and you don't keep it tied to the Buddhist teachings, it is not as effective. It doesn't work as well. And so consequently, I do believe that if we wish to be informed by Buddhism, if that's our goal, then we have the Dharma, we have the teaching, and we can reflect upon it. And the last one I want to work with, how can a bodhisattva be both gentle and firm? That is gentleness a kind of weakness? Is being gentle mean that I'm so gentle that I don't really have the firmness that may be needed in the situation? And when I was looking this up in the sutra, I thought, oh, it's a good question. And will the sutra answer the question? So when I put in gentle, lo and behold, the first thing that came up is that a bodhisattva has 10 types of resolute intention, firm intention, things he's really going to push for. And lo and behold, what is the first one? The first one of these resolute intentions is to be gentle, to speak with words that give comfort, to speak with words that are not harsh, not hateful, not demeaning. To be gentle is, in fact, one of the great aspects of the Buddhist teaching. Thank you all. Any comments on this last one before we close this part of the session? Okay, Chris, I think you can take.
Actually, there is a question from Samantha. It's in the chat. Let me read it to you. It says, could you say that being gentle is a type of skillful means?
Yes, I think my immediate reaction is yes. To be gentle is to be able to talk to someone without frightening them or scaring them or causing them to turn away. I had a situation, a beloved niece of mine surprised me by saying that she was afraid of me. I was too much of a celebrity or too much of an authority, or she was afraid to ever say anything around me because she felt it wouldn't live up to my standards. And I really told her to please don't fear me. Don't let me put off. If I see too much, I'm too old, I'm too ancient, I'm too well known, I'm too whatever. I just want to be a person. I want to be and stay within the realm of being a real person. And at one level, I think that's what I equate with the Bodhisattva. All right, Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lancaster. Okay, so we should take a break, about 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 8:10. See you all shortly.
Well, Venerable D, there was somebody asked a question about um, meditation in prisons. Would you like to give a quick answer to that?
Sure.
Okay. So Chris, let D go first.
Sure. Do you wanna read the question? Or I can. I can read it to you or send it in chat to you.
Oh, you can read it.
Sure.
The question they have, D, is does the fact that people meditate and do meditation in prison then cut the rate of recidivism after they get out?
Um, it it can.
Well,
It
you can answer that for the whole group.
okay, yeah. Wait. I think everyone is back.
Yeah, let's see. Using my buttons. Okay. We're all back, and Venerable D is going to field the next question, and I'll read the question out. Or D, do you want to read the question? I sent it to you.
Sure. Dr. Lancaster mentioned how meditation helps to reduce the prison return rate. I would like to understand more about that. Was it because meditation helped with the gentle resolute? It can help people to become more aware of what's going on in their mind, of how not to react, of their feeling and emotions. Now, not in terms of being released and coming back to prison, the most important factor is a support network. They need to have a job. They need to have a place to stay. Even like, let's say for me, if I don't have a place to stay, if I don't have food, I'm going to steal. And the majority of people who receive it is that, who come back to prison, most of them have addiction issues. So no amount of meditation can help with that. It could, but most people who serve a life sentence from 15 to 20 to 25, most of them, especially when they practice meditation, they don't commit more crimes. That's the key because one, prisons are hell. I like the Mahayana hells that the Buddha that we talked about because at least in hell you suffer the torture and then you move up, you will survive. In the physical prison, in the physical hell that we are in, you could get killed depending on your crimes. So just so you guys know, for the past 2 weeks, I have felt quite overwhelmed because four guys got stabbed to death by other prisoners in their 40s, to death. And then one person was killed in a jail in Sacramento. A woman at the Chinos prison where I go every Monday, she was punched, and she was in her early 50s, She used to be an addict, and doctors could not save her, so she died. So and also last Friday, not last Friday, there were 8 cases of overdose. And then at the downtown's men's central jail, there were 4 deputies that were attacked. So you guys see the violence and the chaos and the suffering inside the prison is is bad. Now, when it comes to meditation, the way I usually do mindfulness meditation with them without anything other than a charm that I use, even without the Buddha. You don't need that. It helped them to actually process their traumatic experiences and heal from it, and also along with the practice of compassion and loving kindness. And mindfulness has been proven now. It's not me talking, is from Dr. Basil van der Kolk, Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. Meditation and mindfulness practices can help people, traumatized individuals, to address their trauma and heal from it. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Venerable D.
May I add one more thing, just so you guys know, because we have so much homelessness in America, the people and the majority of them have some form of mental illness and also addiction. All these folks, they were traumatized when they were kids. They either witnessed their parents attacking each other, that's domestic violence. They were either physical, emotional, sexually abused at home by family members or by relatives or by friends, by their caretaker. So those are the two contributing. There's one more that I can't think of. Oh, their parents never hug them. They were neglected by their parents. So all people experience these 3 categories, chances are most of the time they will have addiction. They need drug to deal with the trauma inside their body. So that's why you see, and if they don't get into prison, they wouldn't do well at work. They wouldn't do well with relationships, certainly not with marriages, and certainly not with their kids. And then they end up losing their job. They end up being homeless. I just want you guys to understand that, just so that you can have more compassion for them. But we cannot help them. You need a government and private entities to help them. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Dr. Lancaster?
I think that we want to open up for their reports now, Chris. So if you'll call on them, please.
Sure thing. All right. Who would like to go first and share your insights into what your research told you, that AI told you about Umi One? And Shan.
Yeah, I could go first.
Thank you.
Um, so when I read Chris' email, so as usual, so I use my for Fogong Dictionary AI to expand to do this research. So I open a new thread because so first of all I paste all the chapter 1 passage to AI. So I use Cloud and another thing is that because Zhiyue has showed us very useful tool. Like we set the tool role as we told AI that you are playing a role as Buddhist monastic. So we try to train the AI like his response should be kind of like not the person on the street, but just give some Buddhist monastic response. And then because there's already some prompt already feed to AI, so when I paste the sutra passage, it give me some responses like the it maybe imagine that I'm still doing the translation for the Foreign Dictionary. It give us some sentence forms like that. So but I just tell him, could you tell me five joyfulness in our life based on the above sutra text? So he just immediately get it and feed me back some finding joyfulness in life according to 10 ground sutras, and like the cultivating rules of goodness, develop compassion and kindness. And also he also remember that he's a Buddhist monastic and give me the response. Develop compassion and kindness, participate appreciation and mindfulness, rejoice in good, something like that. And also I tell the AI that how about for the lay people? How could they stay in the joyfulness ground in the daily life? So then the AI will immediately tell me that finding joyfulness in daily life, teaching cultivate generosity within your means, like something, and something really I like is find joy in family and work. I think that's really for the lay people, like view family responsibility as opportunities to practice patience and kindness, approach work service, finding meaning in benefiting others. So I think that's really and transform lives, fears. That's what something I really like. Something related to the trust and terminology. Cultivate noble friendship, like joining need to good spiritual guidance. And then at this point, I change because we have this temperature here. Now, as you set it back to 10, 10 is that we're using for the translation because we limit AI not to be too innovative. And then when I type this, I change the temperature to 100%. That means I give freedom to AI. He can to talk to me like a real person, like a real friend. So at this point, I set temperature to 100%. And then will there be any slight differences to the lay people in different ages or different continents or cultures? Oh, that's really great. So AI gives me for different age groups like children and youth, working adults, the different people how can be staying joyfulness elders and different cultures like for East Asians context, Western context, and global South context if we are from those cultural backgrounds. And in contemporary circumstances, digital era, environmental crisis, urban settings. So I found that AI is actually they could get your problem and they can respond to you. But I think the most importantly is that I already pasted the sutra text. Then I all change the temperatures, the settings, and also try to communicate with AI. So you give me something that I really never thought about it. For example, if I'm writing an essay, if I doing analysis with the 10 ground sutra or the cultural background, I think those key points will help me. Even though just small points, but it will give me some new ideation, innovation point to look for the materials. So that's my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the fact that you can set it like you did, 10% to 100%, is very interesting. It's prompting. It still comes down to how we prompt, how we ask the question. So we always need to be working on our prompting skills. And the more skillful you are, your upaya of prompting, the better results you're going to get. Thank you very much, Sunjan. That's quite nice.
Who's ready to go next?
Can I go next?
Yes, please. Thank you, Venerable.
Yes, here is. As I got email from the kids, then I use ChatGPT and DeepSeek to analyze first Bhumi 1. I asked to ChatGPT analyze Bhumi 1. So ChatGPT analyze the first. ChatGPT gave me the meaning and significance of Bhumi 1, the Pramudita. Give me some meaning and significance of Bhumi 1. Then the key characters of Bhumi 1 or give me generation of Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta formally takes the vow to attain enlightenment, then overcoming doubt and stating faith, ethical purity and moral discipline, overcoming attachment and developing generosity, bodhisattvas, joy and fearlessness. And then challenges and obstacle of Bhumi 1. While Bhumi 1 is a state of great joy, it is also a time of challenges and tests. Then overcoming and self-doubt, balancing compassion and wisdom, avoiding spiritual pride. Then give me connection to later Bhumis. Bhumi 1 serves as the foundation for all subsequent stages. Bhumi 2, Bimala, Bhumi 3, and 10 just give me some analysis about Bhumi 1. Then 5 practical application for practitioners, how to practice Bhumi 1 in daily life, cultivating joy, developing generosity, stating ethical conduct, and overcoming fear and doubt. And then conclusion. Same question I asked to DeepSeek. DeepSeek also gave me same thing actually. Give me some analysis about Bhumi 1. First, give me overview of Pramudita Bhumi, Bhumi 1, great joy, key practice and significance of Bhumi 1. Then key features of Pramudita Bhumi, realizations of emptiness, sunyata, joy and enthusiasm, and then the perfection of generosity, dana paramita, and then renunciation and ethical conduct, symbolism of Pramudita Bhumi, first Bhumi, and then overcoming obstacles, progression and next stages, practical implication and implications for practitioners. So this summary that ChatGPT and DeepSeek give me the same thing, almost same thing. And then I asked to ChatGPT, how does Fast Bhumi helps in our lives, in our daily life? Then the Fast Bhumi DeepSeek gave me this analysis how to use Fast Bhumi in our daily life. Then there's a cultivating joy and positivity, and then how to apply in our life. Then practicing generosity, dana, then understanding emptiness, sunyata, developing our compassion, karuna, overcoming self-centeredness, building foundation of ethical living, embracing a path of growth and transformation. And then give me some summary how to apply the Fast Bhumi in our daily life. So nice. And then conclusion. Same thing I asked to ChatGPT, how does Fast Bhumi helps in our life. So ChatGPT also gave me the same thing, almost same, overcoming fear and self-doubt, developing generosity, that how to use use or apply in our daily life. So, and then conclusion, living the first bhumi in our daily life, experience get joy and purposes, overcome fear, doubt, negativity, develop generosity, strengthen relationships, and first find long-term motivation by aligning with higher purposes. So that is I asked to DeepSeek and ChatGPT about ChatGPT about fast boomi. Thank you.
Venerable, do you think that since you put in the sutra, could you ask the sutra to return answers which use the words directly from the sutra? In other words, not just a general use of AIs, but
I just asked some normal questions about how to use in our daily life like this.
yeah. And the answers are okay, but I wonder sometimes if when we just get the answer from AI, it's a general answer. But since we are putting in and can feed in the whole sutra, can we ask it to return an answer which quotes directly from the sutra as a way of, as a kind of a check on how effective the AI answer is? Anyway, thank you. You did well. You found a lot of good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Who would like to share?
I will go next.
Yes, please.
Okay, so my search is about my question that even I read, but I don't understand well. So I just want to learn about the first Pumi. And then the first thing that I need to ask is about what is the first Pumi? And they explain me according to the ChatGPT explain very short, just like they list down over here and list down like unshakable faith and list down compassion and dana parami, something like that. This is a definition. And it's short compared to DeepSeek. And then I go to another question. Is the most important stake among them? They say like it important just for the first thing to entrain to the second, like the beginning of the bodhisattva realizations. It's crucial only for that. And they also say, yeah, the more important is the 10 and the 8 Pumi. And yeah, a lot of things they answer just like go back to my question, just like it is the entry point, faith, aspiration, generosity. And then I ask another question. The first stage is joyful. Does it mean all joy in daily life regarded as the first stage? They say no, not necessarily. And then they give me the difference between the daily life and the first Pumi, the daily life joy and the first Pumi joy. Like the source, they tell the source of joys and the deep of joy, effect on mind. And then I go to another questions. Is there any similar sutra in Theravada tradition? And according to ChatGPT, they just say 10 parami, and they say about the 4 stages enlightenment, Sotapanna, Sakatagami, Anagami, and Arahata. And they also talk about Jataka tales that probably similar to that. And Deep Sikh, if we go to Deep Sikh, if I ask the Deep Sikh one question, maybe I don't need to ask another question. The same question, what is the first Pumi of the Dasabhumika Sutra? And then they answer very detailed, just like it's kind of criteria, like the first criteria, realization and emptiness, the second criteria, perfection or generosity, the third, Arya Sutra, Arya status, not normal, like noble, become noble stage. And supernatural ability, merit and wisdom, symbolism, duration, only one incalculable aeon, to reach that state. And then I go, if I add this one, I don't need to go to the second and to the third because it seemed like more detailed enough. And then I ask same question for my second question about the important among them. And then they just say, the answer is very, very short. They say, not inherently more important than other pumis. And then I go to another question, my third question about the daily life joys and the first stage joys. And they say more detail about that, like the source, the right realization, emptiness, quality, unconditional and non-dual purpose, bodhisattva results to progress through all 10 parami or 10 pumis, and ordinary just a source, just like trigger, sensory, pleasure, quality, condition, impermanence, and limitation, while positive does not inherently lead to liberation. They all they talk about the difference. And then I go to another, my fourth question is the Theravada tradition, is it any sutra similar to that? And then this one, there were a lot. 4 stages, enlightenment the same. And they also talk about the Visuddhimagga, the famous commentary in Theravada tradition. So talk about the 7 stage of purification to get enlightenment. Sila, Samadhi, and Chitta Visuddhi, something like that. And this also tell about gradual training, like morals and restraint. This is from the sutta. And also talk much about the Parisambhita Magga. It also from the Tipitaka, from the canon. And Jataka, very, very much detail. So to me, I feel Deep Six give me very much details, and it seemed like much more than I need, but I can understand much deeper about what is the first Pumi, and I like the Deep Six better than ChatGPT if I like want to understand about Mahayana Sutras. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that you came up with an answer about which one of them is best. It's sometimes very hard to decide, but in your case, you certainly found that Deep Seek did a better job of it. And that's something for us all to keep in mind. Very good, Venerable. Thank you so much. Nice report.
All right, who would like to go next? Yeah,
I can go.
thank you, Samantha.
Huh? Okay. So, the first thing I asked was, what is the content of Boomi 1? Just to kind of see preliminarily if it gets things right. I'm not super well versed in the original text, so I kind of had to take it at face value. But it mentioned it being the joyful stage. And it kind of talked about a lot of the stuff that we talked about in classes and also in the videos that we watched before class. So generosity and morality. And I think it did a good job of explaining succinctly kind of generally what each one of these is supposed to talk about. So subduing attachments, skillful means, which you talked about a lot, conquering obstacles, aspiration for Buddhahood. And then it kind of mentions the goal or the purpose of the first Bhumi is recognizing the importance of the journey, cultivating virtues, and aspiring to achieve liberation through wisdom and compassion, which were two words that we had pulled out in previous classes as being really important. So that was also pretty similar. And then I asked, how should one strive to achieve like this stage? And let's see. So it kind of talked about similar things that we had talked about before. So cultivating the right aspiration. And then also pulled out some terms that we can look at more. And I think it's important. I think it was pretty impressive actually that it seems to highlight kind of like the most important aspects of Buddhism in general, as opposed to what you might hear in popular culture if you're talking to people in your community, or if you're talking to people who aren't super, super deep into Buddhism. You might think like, oh, talk about, escaping the cycle of reincarnation or like achieving nirvana, but like it actually goes deeper than that to talk about some of the things that I think are maybe the average person who just like through popular culture knows about Buddhism might not talk about. So deep compassion, working for not just personal gain, but for the benefit of everybody, practicing generosity, not just materially, but also emotionally and spiritually. And then it also even offers like examples of how you can do that in terms of time, resources, and energy. Developing morality, so maintaining virtuous behavior and ethical conduct. And then it also talks about the precepts a little bit, such as lying, stealing, killing, causing harm. Reflecting on emptiness and wisdom. I really like this one because it talked about the two, at least what I understand is like the two main parts of emptiness, which is like impermanence and also interdependence, which is really interesting. So it seemed to get that pretty well as well. Also cultivating practice and resilience by interacting with others. And then they also mentioned it's a journey of growth. So it's still kind of optimistic, and it makes it very clear that it's not something that you can achieve in a very short amount of time. Developing skillful means, which you've talked about a lot. And it also mentions meditation as well, which we've also talked about, and we saw examples of how that can be really useful in today's class. Cultivating joy and enthusiasm. And after talking about it today, it seems like understanding the path is fulfilling, leads to personal liberation, but because it allows one to help all sentient beings. I guess like after today's class, we can also add something about, the joy of learning and things like that. Overcoming ego and attachment, which is relevant, and then making vows to commit to this progress. And it says, and again, so it says progress can often be slow. However, with patience, dedication, and compassion, you can always move closer. Each small effort brings greater joy, fulfillment, and benefit to others. So yeah, those are the two questions I asked, and I thought it did a pretty decent job.
Thank you very much. That's good. Yeah, I like your way of prompting. It's very important to have good prompting. And I thought that you're doing particularly well there, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Samantha. Good report.
Thank you, Samantha. Who'd like to go next? Khan, please.
So I try a couple of things. First of all, because English is not my native language, Chinese is, so I first asked ChatGPT, what should I use, English or should I use Chinese? Which one is more accurate? This is just for my fun. Basically, I'm just trying to challenge the ChatGPT, and basically it tells me, oh, there is language nuances that you want to watch out for, and translations, terminology variations, and structure differences in cultural context. I thought I wasn't really expecting much, but the AI tool gave me a whole bunch of information. I found it's quite interesting. Then I also follow up by saying, hey, now you give me all of these, which version should I study to give me the best results? And I was expecting a single answer, but instead I got a lot of more than I wished for. So all for all densities or scholarly depths, you should use the version that we are using, and for ease of understanding, accessibilities, you should just use the English version, and there are just different options. So, and they're also kind of nice to suggest, hey, you should use this version, probably is the best for optimal results, especially for me who can look at both languages, cross-reference each other. I thought that was an interesting conversation with the ChatGPT. Then I use Notebook LLM to basically upload the entire text. And with that, I ask a series of questions. I think just to reinforce my understanding. The reason I use Notebook LM is because the information is very specific. So I know where the source is. I know the AI is just analyzing the limited text, the trusted, the relative, the most trusted source I can find. So I have a little bit more confidence in terms of the answer that it provides. So basically, I asked a general question about, can you summarize Boomi 1? I thought they did a really good job by capturing a lot of the key points which I learned from the class and from the sutra. So I have much higher confidence when reading all of the content, just more like a reinforcement of my understanding of the sutra. Talk about resolutes, talk about Buddha's, all the key concepts which we talk about. And the nice thing is, I think to Dr. Lancaster's early questions, I can just click on this and give me the exact text from the sutra, the original text from the sutra, to illustrate why the AI comes up with this conclusion. So I thought this is really nice and very useful. So it literally have reference to all the statements AI made. Then I ask other questions, pretty random questions. Can you do a deep analysis? And try to go a little bit deeper into a little bit more thinking about crucial why Boomi 1 is cool is a crucial initial stage. And there are a couple of points the AI is trying to make, which I found it's also very insightful. Some of them I didn't even think of it. I didn't, for example, I didn't even think of why initial stage is crucial. I was just reading through it. I wasn't thinking about this, but I thought AI did bring up some good um, points for me to kind of think more, think deeper. And also then I ask, how do I start practice Bumi 1? So it sort of gave me a set of answers from the sutra. And then I said, hey, can you create a set of Q&A for me? It did create a set of Q&A, simple question, simple answers. I thought this is also very useful as I was kind of studying this. Then I switch back to ChatGPT again. Yeah, I think my fellow classmates also kind of found similar answers there. So basically, I asked fairly general questions. But one thing I think ChatGPT is really good at is to do cross analysis. So what I did was I think one of my fellow classmates all did something similar. I basically asked, can you find other sutras that talks about anything that is related to Bumi 1? So it gave me a set of other sutras that had references to the to Bumis, which I found it's very useful because I don't think I will be able to get all of these information by reading through all these sutras. I thought a summarization would be very nice. Then I pick one sutra. I say, can you compare the difference between, for specific for Bumi 1, can you compare the references between the two sutras? So it gave me a very comprehensive comparison, context and focus, descriptions, how they describe Bumi 1, and the primary emphasis and purpose, and also past and practices, and also a lot of other teachings, even audiences intent for practitioners. And at the end, maybe ChatGPT knows I'm not able to comprehend all the information. It created a table for me. So I found it's very handy, was a very nice conclusion. So my sort of research almost ends here. Then I would think, hey, can you create a picture for me, how you describe Bumi 1? Then it create, I don't know what I will get, but it create this picture. I thought it's very beautiful and try to explain to me why AI create, put all these elements in the picture. So I found it's very interesting. Then I asked, can you create an illustration of how to practice Bumi 1? It shows sort of like a meditation posture of emphasis on generosity, compassion, and inner joys through tranquil. So maybe that's how AI thinks what Bumi 1 really is. So I sort of get a sense of how AI thinks through the pictures. And then I go wild. I was like, okay, can you create pictures for all 10 Bumis and give me a set of images, which I also found is very interesting. Yeah, that's sort of my playtime with AI. Just to share with the class. Oh, actually, one last thing. Sorry, I forgot to mention. Not so Dr. Lancaster, you have to bear with me because I asked sorry, where is my okay. So I took the liberty to ask this question. I say Dr. Lancaster at the University of West is teaching the sutra do you have any comments? I was just, I don't know what I'm doing, but I thought I'm just throw that question. And you can see what what ChatGPT says. So basically, I guess ChatGPT does not have access to any of our PPTs and class course lectures and all. So basically, AI didn't really directly respond to the specific questions. And I thought that makes sense. So I push it harder. I say, can you talk about his viewpoint of the sutra? And ChatGPT also didn't respond directly because it doesn't have any material that he can the AI can now analyze, right? Then I push harder and don't give up. I say, can you use Dr. Lancaster's publication as a reference to analyze his viewpoint about this sutra? No, I didn't get any direct answer from it. I think all of that makes sense also as expected. Again, AI has nothing to analyze, so there's no answer to this question. Okay, that's my playtime with the AI tools.
Thank you, Bill. You've got a lot of good stuff. I love it that you ask it to ask its own questions. That's very good. You did comparisons. You were putting it through its paces. So you got a lot of information there. Very good. I think your ability to do this play back and forth between all these sources is really good. I enjoy your report very much. Thank you, Khan.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, who's next? I think there's 3 of you left. We have Michelle, Sunny, and Wei Yi. We haven't had one. Oh, 2 at once. Which one? Which one would I go? All right, Sunny.
I actually started with using Cloud first because I recently subscribed to the pro version. I've been really wanting to use it more, but I've been using it more for coding. So I fed the source we had from the previous class and then just said analyze. And then it gave me like different characteristics, and they're all in like single bullet points and really easy to read. But then I felt like this was too long, so I said to give me a table, and instead of giving me like a chart like ChatGPT, it gave me like literal code to enter into a database. So I was like, this is not what I want. And I asked to give me like graphics, and then they gave me like code again to have insert graphics. And then I think this was just like not working. So I switched to ChatGPT and I did the exact same prompt in the beginning. And then it I think this is like very similar to anybody else who was using ChatGPT. And it broke down, talk about the motivations and the fear and what joyfulness is. And then I wanted to give me a table so I can like easily read like the definition, see what ChatGPT gives me. And then afterwards, I asked, what, how do I like make it a day using like the Boomi one? And it told me what I have to do in the morning and during the day and the evening. So this is like my little guidance of what I should be doing every day if I have nothing to do, I can just look at this and I know what I'm supposed to be doing to practice the Boomi one to reach that state. And then I just ask some follow-up questions about like, oh, like can you give me like a table so I can see like from the first round to the 10th Boomi and see how they compare. And it gave me this really nice chart just to like have the name and the focus and achievement. And then it gave me an analysis of how like the different stages are different because I asked how do you like progress through the 10 stages. Yeah, so that's basically what I did.
Thank you, Sunny. I really like that you made it so personal and asked it to give you a personal apply it for a day. That's worth really looking at to see whether or not you find how helpful it is. But thank you. I appreciate too that you continue to force it to do something that it, in a sense, didn't do in the previous search. You ask it again and again. And I think that's a very good pattern to follow. Very good, Sunny. Nice report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Michelle, are you
Okay. Here, let me just do this quickly. All right. So, I analyzed this through like several different LLMs. I use Gemini, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Claude. But I actually like kind of the way that Claude made bullet points or list of everything. Um, for this prompt, I actually had it basically act as a Buddhist studies scholar. So it already has the instructions to analyze and interpret scriptures and philosophical concepts and all of that within just the basic prompt. So it's kind of like a little bit less work to do um, each time it's prompted specifically. So I like the way that it broke everything down, but in Claude's interpretation, it didn't specifically mention anything about Vajragarba's verses in it. And I kind of liked what some of the other models mentioned about it. So I asked specifically about what those verses teach. The first one, though, was an interpretation by Gemini. I didn't like it as much, but Claude's interpretation of it got like really detailed from a number of different perspectives, and I feel like it's a lot more like Buddhist studies oriented. It analyzed it, okay, doctrinal architecture and rhetorical structure, the philosophical underpinnings, like comparative textual analysis, historical critical perspectives. It just like kind of went into pretty much like every way that you can study like just those verses specifically. And I liked it also because it referenced some other sutras and then also like different things that I can study to kind of understand it better and compare and contrast it with similar sutras.
Very good. I like the fact that you set up the pattern to be scholarly. You gave information to it. This is what I want you to do. Rather than letting it just give you anything, you had already set parameters.
Yeah. Some of the models are better at following those parameters than others. So I think that's one where like Claude is really good at following those parameters specifically.
I think that's I I'm going to follow your lead when I'm working with AI. I'll do Claude and tell it to be academic. Very
Nice.
good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, that leaves Wei Yi. Wei Yi.
Okay, give me 1 second. I did this twice, but in the same AI tools, because sometimes I don't know what question should I ask, and then I ask in like different orders, and then I realize it's kind of messy. So I will show this first. So I just copy the question from the announcement. It said analyze booming one as found in the sutras, and then the AI tools give me a really broad explanation, and I think that's like kind of like everywhere. So I ask a follow-up question about give me some real example, because I realize sometimes if I explain all this to somebody that don't really know this professional setting, like in Buddhism, they they don't really understand what I mean. Even I explain it in detail, because at the beginning, when I read through this, even they translated it into Chinese, I have to kind of understand what each word and each sentence means. So like examples probably gonna help me, or if I want to explain it to other people, more easier to understand what booming one, the joyful stage means, or how to achieve booming one in some way. And then this is actually a related question popped up after I asked the previous question I found I really interested in, which is what are some practical ways to cultivate the quality of the first booming? And it gave me some examples as well: material giving, giving time, sharing knowledge, and letting go. And all this, develop compassion, reflect on emptiness, and all this. And then I realized I do have the PDF about the sutra. So I upload the entire sutra, because I don't know how to collect the chapter 1. So I just ask, I don't know where that is. I just ask, like, please help me to summarize. Oh, right here. Summarize the page 29 to between 29 and 59 from PDF, and which is the first chapter, Joyfulness Ground of the Booming One. So it gives me a great summary. And this one bring me to a more detailed information, like fearlessness, joyful reflection, 10 great vows. And also, I believe there's a conclusion as well toward the end, like significance. Yes. And then before, I also asked to translate to Chinese. So the tool also helped me to translate all of this into Chinese as well. Yeah, so I think this part I found really useful, just because sometimes when I read through the sutra, English is more easy to understand. Chinese make me a little bit confused. I know each word, but when you connect to a sentence, it's kind of like I don't know what they're trying to say. But this helped me to put a great summary. So I think this is really good. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, a translation is almost like a commentary. Translation has to answer a lot of questions. And so the result of a translation are all the choices that have been made. But thank you. I think you did what we wanted you to do. It's very good. Thanks, everybody. I really enjoyed it. Nice.
Thank you. Good night.
Oh, Chris, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone. Really interesting reports tonight. We'll meet up again next week, same time. See you then. Be well. Take care. Good night and good morning.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Right.
Good night.